Hey, no particular warnings are needed for this video, so we can get right to it. A short time passes between the group meeting the Queen of Dreams Lorble to the time we're moving on to now. What happened during it wasn't much. Well, not much besides, 1, the group heading back to their home base in Ireland. Whoops, I forgot to mention that's where their home base is located. Why? I like Ireland. They visited a lake where they deal with an odd watery being. They run into Cody during this and find out he doesn't like litter, as he was picking up trash in the nearby woods. It's here that they learn that anomalies have been popping up a lot more ever since their division found the Atlantis gate. And 2, Quinn and Karth begin to grow closer. 3, Adelaide ends up in a coma. But it's fine, she gets better. Meta note, it was mainly done to explain why her character became absent for a bit, as her player, Mir, became very busy with school for a little. But then she's able to come back for this part that we're getting into here. So, as we see, even though there are many other sessions that I did not mention in that little bit, not much progress has been made in the information on Atlantis. I had mentioned in the last video that they found a library of lost books and stories, but sadly, there's no useful information about Atlantis there. They were only able to find stories about a goddess and a mountain of dragons. Besides how this was largely my fault for not planning jack all, there also just wasn't good leads yet. They needed to find another source of information. So, the bosses decided it was time to get in contact again with one of their more infamous connections. They decided to maybe send the team to maybe they were sent to the Underworld. Kinda. It's fine, you'll see. Just as everyone else was understandably like, what the fuck about it, the bosses reassured them that they would be okay and that they're even sending a guide to help them. They get to travel with Kim! Yay! Yeah, not many people were thrilled about that, especially not Adelaide, who personally experienced a bad moment with her. Even when Quinn tried to be friendly and shake her hand, Kim just looked at it and walked off. Like a bitch! Anyways, Kim drives them out and then guides them on foot through a forest. The team could tell they were getting close to something as they felt themselves pass through some sort of wall. They didn't see anything, and there were no signs of anything at all. There was only the feeling of passing through some thick wall of energy. Suddenly the air felt charged and the trees stood sharper, their leaves red and constantly falling, while the decorated pines stay a deep green with the sharp scent of sap in the air. Then they see a large pillar of stone in a clearing that wasn't there before. Kim walks up to it without pause as the group is confused, not seeing any doorway or even windows on this massive looming structure. Instead, Kim just pulls out a hidden rope amongst the roots that crawl up its base. The group is made to climb up this gigantic fucking thing, and thank fuck no one fell because, Kim does not want to deal with that. Instead, Kim just deals with helping them all up when they get closer to the top. Once there, they see that this pillar holds a winding staircase that circles down into darkness. The team doesn't get the chance to think too long about it, as, again, Kim just starts walking without pause, right down the steps. They all hesitate, but then follow after her. And contrary to everyone's fears, I, in fact, did not put them in danger of falling off the stairs. Nope. They were allowed to just walk and talk. They chatted amongst each other, but they also questioned Kim about where they're going and why. What can they even expect? Kim huffs and tells them the unfortunate fact that she can't warn them of much because it changes every time. This area that they're about to travel through, the challenges and the threats, they change with every visit, and it also depends on who is traveling through it. Which caused some concerned looks around the group, but they proceeded forward. When they got to the bottom of these abyssal stairs, they found themselves, as expected, underground and feeling like they were just between a layer of the earth. like some ever-expanding cave with a light source that came from nowhere. The utter stillness of the place unsettling. No wind, no sound, the scent of something like dust hovering in the energy-charged air, coating their lungs and floating amongst a lingering fog that feels like the wisps of forgotten souls. The group was then made to roll a resolve and composure check, something that would equate to a charisma save to not succumb to fear as they gather where they are. All of them succeed, except Mateo. So Mateo stayed by the steps like, you guys can handle this on your own, right? Trying to act casual while internally he was very shaken. Luckily, Adelaide was able to reassure him that they'd all be okay, even pointing out how they have the capable Kim with them, which was a struggle for Adelaide to say, but hey, she said it, and it did ease Mateo, so he was able to walk again. But it was asked of Kim again if there was anything she could warn them of, and she told them how there wasn't. As she said, it changes every time. The only thing she can say is about the people. No, the demons they'll be talking with. You need to be careful with your words around them. If only Kim followed her own advice, because just as she said that, the ground started to rumble and shake, as if reacting to her words. Kim cursed as suddenly walls of earth started to erupt from the ground, blocking their path. They all tried to run past it, but the growing earth was too fast. Soon, the route was completely cut, and there was only a wall of rock and a single entrance cut from it. They were now faced with a gigantic maze. Kim looked beyond frustrated by this, and half the group asked her question option number 1, what the hell is this? But before she could answer, we see Mateo doing option number 2, going and touching the wall to check it out. Kim told him to stop, but it was too late. Earth started to grow out and encase Mateo's hands. By the time he was yanked away, both his hands were completely turned into rock. Kim gave him and everyone else a sharp look, telling them, "This is the challenge we have to face now. No one touch it. And as we go through it, don't think of anything. It'll use your thoughts against you." Which is always great to hear. Being told to not think about anything. I guess we're just gonna have to freaking Ghostbusters our way through this shit. Which they did. And it went as well as you'd think. Some things that showed up were harmless, like these cookies that grew out of the wall like mushrooms. Some were pink and smooth, while the other was rough and red. One being sweet as can be, and the other being spicy as hell. As they collected these cookies, they ignored the taunting whispers, the voices the maze threw at them, and ran away from a shadow that chased them through the walls. But then, as they were making good ground, Adelaide decided to split from the party for a moment, checking down an opposite corridor as she heard a sound. Around the corner, Adelaide saw a shadow, and she would have ran if it weren't for her massive perception check that allowed her to see who it was. As a sandaled foot stepped out of the shadows, and fucking Cody walked out. Adelaide blinked, and Cody just looked surprised and smiled like, "Oh hey, you're that pretty girl from before. Fancy running into you here." Cody? How did you, get here?" "Oh, I just fell in here."
What?
"Yeah, I was just walking around and I fell down this deep hole and ended up here. Really weird place. Where are we?" This is like... Cody was cut off by Adelaide covering his mouth and telling him to shh. She then proceeded to warn him how you need to be careful here, and you need to not think of anything when going through here. Which Cody just simply said, "Think of nothing? Ah, easy. I do that all the time."
Right.
So Adelaide just decided to accept this odd moment and guided him back to the group, which made everyone confused but also made Quinn especially suspicious of him. It just didn't make sense. So she asked him again how he ended up here, and he told the same story that he told Adelaide. Quinn continued to squint at him, but could only accept it as she failed to sense any lies. Plus, they didn't have time as that wall shadow came back, and they all had to run again. As they ran, they soon saw the exit to this place, finally. Kim urged them to run faster as the shadow continued after them, and starting to stretch outside of the wall. Large spiked antlers showing, and round reflective eyes showing. As they made their way out of the maze, I asked them one last time what they were thinking of, if anything. Most of them said nothing, or that they thought of how they just wanted out. But one said they aggressively thought of something cute. And so, from the existence of the maze popped out Bo! Atlantis' favorite pet, named after David Bowie. This shadow creature that has been tailing them turned into this cute little mute creature. After a moment of just exasperation and catching their breath, they accepted the little creature as it stretched up and wrapped around one of the team members. With that, they looked behind themselves and found they were faced with the Underworld city that they were destined for. Except, it didn't look how they expected. They had all expected one of a hellish design full of screaming and demons and violence. Only one of those things were true, as they saw demons of many sizes and shapes moving around the city, but the city itself sounded just like an average city on their surface world. And everything was lit up and made from stone, like a mix of cyberpunk with forgotten underground ruins. And there were no tortured souls or beings of any other kind. They even saw a bookshop and a flower shop. Demons walked around in suits. Everyone looked to Kim and asked where they were. They thought they were going to the Underworld? Which Kim huffed and said, "Not the Underworld. No, just to a Underworld. This place is called the Plateau. It's a place of a new wave of demons that have left hell and Satan's rule. But still demons. So be careful," she muttered. The group nodded warily and continued to follow after her as she led them to the center of the city, towards the large building that sat in the middle of it. As she escorted them past the guards and through the doors, they ended up in a waiting room. And yes, Cody was still with them. He was just following them around like a lost dog. But once they got to this point, some of the demon goons just kind of looked at him, looked at Kim, and it was just like, "Should we escort him back to the surface?" And Kim just said, "Please, please, get him the fuck out of here, please, God." And they just nodded, and so Cody was just escorted away, which he just accepted, no problems, as he was just like, "Oh, hey, this is real cool. Wow, you're real big, buddy. Wow." He just kind of went. And that was the end of Cody being there. And so they were left there to wait. But it wasn't a long wait, because it wasn't long till the door was kicked down and a blue demon with slicked hair swaggered on in like, "Hey, look who we got here. Look at who we got here. It's the new Atlantis kids. Great to meet ya. Call me Lino." Yes, this was my attempt at an accent I gave for him for some frickin' reason. But anyways, they were all shocked and not expecting this. But it seemed like this was finally someone that they could talk to and ask, "What the hell?" Which he just lounged back in a chair at a desk that was suddenly there and said, "I'm the deal maker and the boss for now. We got business shit to talk about, yeah? Cool. Nice to see we got replacements so soon." Which Quinn was the one to speak up and repeat the question as well as ask him, "What do you mean?" Lino then explains how he and their Atlantis division has a deal of some sorts. They do work for the demons and his boss, and their demons don't do business or cause trouble in their area. And their group is now here to fulfill that position, since the other team died, apparently. Which, of course, made everyone stop, and Karth asked if their jobs that they would give them could potentially cause them to die too. Which Lino just shrugged and said, maybe. The jobs we want to use you for, to take advantage of your special skills. So like you, Mr. Doctor, my boys get hurt often, and so someone like you, to treat them would be real swell. Or maybe sometimes we have Miss Adelaide do a bit of persuading on our part. That sort of thing. We deal with all sorts of business. He smiled, but the group didn't feel at ease about this. Quinn continued to be the one to show the most distaste for this as she said, so what? We're supposed to just do this for you now? We don't get a choice? And Lino answered bluntly, nope. It's in the contract. It's in the deal. It's how it is. You work for them, so you work for us too. Oh, but don't worry, we ain't asking you to do this shit for free. No. We're demons here, not fae. We work in deals and exchanges. So you all get to have something out of this. A gift, a souvenir, a wish, a gesture, whatever you want. Let me know. Lino continued to be lounged back in a seat that was now suddenly a couch, just waiting as the tense group debated. Surprisingly, Mateo was the first one to step forward and awkwardly ask, well, could you do something about these? And he held up his rock hands. Lino laughed and said, that would be an easy thing. Easy peasy, come here. And he then dragged a fingertip over Mateo's knuckles and suddenly the rock was gone. But not completely. Now Mateo had a tattoo of 2 black bars over his fingers, and whenever he wanted, he could summon the rock back for a brawl bonus of +1. Next was Karth, who asked for something to help him to do his job better, to help him be a better doctor, a better healer. Lino paused at that and thought for a bit, but soon said, yeah, sure, I think we can get something together for you. And they told Karth that they'd deliver something to him soon. Quinn was biting her tongue at this, but soon relented and quietly asked if they could help find her family, which caught most of the group by surprise because she had never mentioned it before. And half the group looked at her in shock and concern. Quinn just stood there with clenched fist as she stared Lino down. Lino raised an eyebrow and said, I see. Sure thing. I think I could get some of my boys to do that for you. Yeah. Sure thing. And he snapped his fingers. And the room just went quiet, processing the request a moment before finally Adelaide stepped forward. She had been thinking of a way to word this request as she remembered Kim's warning from before. And she came up with the request. Tell us the location of where we would be able to safely find new information or a clue regarding the Atlantis we seek. Which caused Lino to laugh a bit, because he could sense the care in there, and he gave her some praise for it before saying, safely is up for debate, but I could think of a place, yeah. You've already met that one librarian, yeah? Well, there's another one of them, a brother to it, over down in Egypt. They should hold some really old shit in tomes that could give you some more hints. Head there. Adelaide nodded, and with that, they all had taken their side of the deal. Lino just smiled and told them, it's a pleasure doing business with you. We'll see you next time when we have a job for you. Bye-bye now. And then suddenly they were teleported back to the base, right in the middle of the lounge area where they saw Kadir sitting. Immediately Quinn confronted him on what the fuck that was. Were their souls just sold to a devil? She thought they were supposed to care for them. She didn't come here to be sold off to the service of demons. She's done. And then Quinn walked away. Or, at least, she tried to. Suddenly, Quinn wasn't able to move. She was frozen in place by some unknown pressure as Kadir stood up. When Kadir finally spoke, it was in a tone that was far from pleased at her outburst. He told them how, no, This syndicate does not care about you as individual people. This syndicate is about caring for the greater good. If it is a choice to save and protect a greater amount of people at the sacrifice of making a small group do what they don't want to do, then fine, I'll do it. And you will do it too. And you better get used to it. Because sadly, that's what this whole business is about. Getting used to doing things you never wanted to do. As he ends this, there is a lingering air from his voice that speaks of what levels he has had to endure for himself. But he doesn't let it last long enough to matter as he throws a collection of new pins onto the table, saying, "And by the way, congrats. You've all gone up in the ranks for your valued work. Dismissed." With that, he stalks out of the room, and suddenly Quinn is able to move again as she lets out a breath she didn't know she was holding. It was an uncomfortable and quiet night for the rest of the day. Tensions were high, but they at least knew where they had to go next. So, the group made plans to head to Egypt, which is where our next video would be taking place if only things didn't go wrong. But we'll find that out in the next one. Thank you all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed this one, and I'm excited to tell you of the shenanigans in the next one. Oh boy, trust me. So, as usual, until then, keep your heads above water. Bye.